This is TWiT.
Tech Break is brought to you by our friends at IT Pro TV, now called ACI Learning. With all the same fun of IT Pro TV, ACI is amplified with new solutions for all your IT training needs. Entertain your team while they learn. Visit go.acilearning.com/TWiT. TWiT listeners who complete the form can receive as much as 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. You'll get the proper quote based on the size of your team. Are some gasolines better than others?
So let me start with this statement. There is no such thing as pure gasoline. Gasoline is an amorphous term that encompasses some mixture of hydrocarbons and assorted other additives. So yes, the answer is there are different gasolines.
So the formulation could be different at all the different brands.
The formulation varies by region, by time of year, because there are limits on evaporative emissions. Like when it's cold, they change for cold weather. They have to change the formulation because otherwise your car won't start because the gas won't evaporate. Or when it's hot, they change the formulation so it evaporates less. So yeah, there are differences in gas from different vendors and also from different locations.
What? So, okay. And by the way, Will, we're talking about petrol, just so you know.
Yes.
I did gather that. Thank you.
I'm teasing.
I mean, over here, it's pretty explicit. It's pretty explicit over here. You go to a pump and there are different grades of gas.
Oh, yeah. We have
rated by octane, by its ability to explode, right?
Yeah. It's actually resistance to self-ignition. Yeah, is what the octane is.
Higher octane means more resistant.
Yes, so it won't knock. Right. So you can use higher compression ratios. But yes, we have different grades of gas. But even from one station to another, if they're getting their gas from different refineries or different suppliers, it may be different.
So gas is fungible, sort of, but not exactly fungible.
Okay. Yeah. Now I got all sorts of questions. So how much of gasoline is actually made out of gasoline?
Well, like I said, there is no such thing as gasoline. Gasoline is primarily a mix. It's primarily a mixture.
I mean, of pure ethanol, right?
It's petrol. It's petrol.
Yeah.
How much petrol is in gasoline?
It's predominantly a blend of heptane and octane, and how much of each you put in there depends. Like I was saying earlier.
So I drill a hole in the ground, and some black stuff comes up. We call it
crude oil.
Crude oil, bubbling crude. And I take a barrel of that. I bring it to refinery. What comes out of the refinery?
Actually, a whole bunch of different things. Everything from sludge to diesel and kerosene and heptane and octane.
So heptane's a thing. Octane's a thing.
Heptane, heptane is a hydrocarbon molecule with 7 carbon atoms, and octane is 8 carbon atoms. So they're two different compounds, and they blend them.
According to Wikipedia, the name gasoline comes from a British businessman named John Cassell, who in 1862 placed an ad in the Times of London for a fuel oil that patented, his name, remember, was Cassell. Cazelline oil, safe, economic, and brilliant, possesses all the requisites which have been long desired as a means of powerful artificial light. Cazelline became gasoline and gasoline. So it comes from you guys.
Did not know that.
Yeah. Petrol comes from the word petroleum. Is there any oil in gasoline?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's
What's
mostly
the oil product in gasoline? That's the heptane and octane?
The heptane and octane, primarily, and some other stuff.
And then some of that goes in the food system to become things like high fructose corn syrup and citric acid and whatever, all these things that are actually ultimately petroleum derived.
And then if you think about it, all that stuff that A.G. Baer came up with is just coal tar derivatives. With coal tar is another byproduct of refinement. And they said, well, what can we make with this? How about aspirin? What?
Yeah.
Coal tar, I think, when I think about it, well, it's a chemistry experiment. You've got some long-chain carbon atoms, and you can, do stuff to them to turn it into some other compound, right? It's
into acetyl salicylic acid.
Yeah.
I misspoke. Corn is where you get where they use citric acid as additive from. I don't know what I'm saying. Never mind.
Sometimes we put corn ethanol into our gasoline.
Right.
Yes. And most U.S. gasoline is about 10% ethanol.
Is that because of the corn lobby? Is that because of Archer Daniels Midland? Or is it actually good for you?
That is part of it. There are some advantages because alcohol has an oxygen atom in there in an alcohol because there's an oxygen hydrogen chain on there. And so the extra oxygen helps with combustion, and ethanol actually ethanol has a higher octane value than most gasoline. So it actually helps to raise the octane value of the gasoline without having to add more oil.
So really,
you're also putting this technically a renewable fuel, mixing that in there. So you're using less fossil fuel.
For some reason, I thought a refinery took, up from the ground came a bubbling crude oil and took all the bad stuff out and produced this pure, clear thing that is oil, but it's really, we call it gasoline because you can burn it. But it's not that. It's another chemistry experiment. It's just like coal tar to aspirin. They just got all these long-chain hydrocarbons, and they do stuff with it.
The refinery itself is, you can think of it, Richard Campbell has explained this very well, how it still works. It's basically a giant still. Mm-hmm. And you're taking off at various levels. You're taking off as you distill, you literally are distilling crude oil, and you're taking off a bunch of different compounds at various levels.
Among them, heptane and octane, which are just long-chain isomers,
and propane and a bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
All the anes.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's a pain in the ane.
Insane in the ane.
Insane in the membrane.
The main.
So how much? So it's silly to say how much gasoline is in gasoline because there is no such thing as gasoline. That's just a brand name.
Essentially, yes.
That everybody uses, but it's just a brand name.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is my father was a petroleum geologist. I didn't know any of this stuff.
I wish I listened to what my father said.
I should have listened to Dad. He would have explained it. I'm sure he could explain this now. I should ask him.
Well, there's another Douglas Adams jokes. I wish I listened to what my mother said. What did she say? I don't know. I didn't listen.
So heptane gasoline's about 1% heptane. It's not a lot. There's a little bit of heptane is a solvent. It's, according to Wikipedia, used as an adhesive remover by stamp collectors. So how much octane is in gasoline?
Coolstamps.com.
Yeah.
That's the biggest component of gasoline is the octane. And then they like I said, they blend it with some heptane and a whole bunch of other things.
A little bit of heptane.
Like the ethanol and assorted other, there's some things that they add to help lubricate the valves and the.
So when they say high octane, they mean that it is a higher percentage of octane in this gasoline.
Not necessarily. It's so. I mean, 100 octane. So what they're doing is it's relative to the combustion characteristics of pure octane.
Yeah, I understand that octane number. Pure octane,
yeah.
Well, that doesn't relate it necessarily to the percentage of octane in the gasoline. That's just a number that reflects it.
Right, because you can have something that has. You can have a gasoline that has less octane and more ethanol. And it can have the same octane rating as something that has less ethanol and more octane.
Oh, I see.
Of the 18 isomers of normal octane, which is C8H18, long-chain carbohydrate.
Right. The eight carbons, hence the octane.
Yeah. Okay. And 18 hydrogens. Octane gets its name from the 2,2,4-trimethylpentane compound, which is highly resistant to auto ignition. And when I say auto, I don't mean automobile.
No, just self-ignition. Blowing up by itself.
This is really giving my organic chemistry.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, my brain is about to auto-ignite.
I think this is very interesting, but I don't know.
It is very interesting.
I'm surprised I don't know it.
I had to take organic chemistry 1, 2, and 3.
It shows. Good work.
I feel like we should know this. Like, we're going around saying, yeah, they take the bubbling crude, they turn it into gasoline, they throw away the sludge. But no, it's not that simple.
No, they don't throw away the sludge. They use that to
make aspirin
in massive container ships. No, they burn that in container ships.
Oh,
all those ships going back.
The bunker oil.
Oh,
yeah, that's the sludge. They're burning that for the giant.
Why do they use bunker oil?
Because
bunker
it's
fuel?
Cheap.
Oh,
because it's the stuff nobody else can use.
It's like tar.
Yeah.
And then what? And diesel? What's diesel?
Diesel is a couple of steps down from octane. I mean, it's actually also still predominantly octane.
It's somewhere in between bunker fuel and gasoline. Is diesel?
Yes. Yeah.
And for next week's show, the reading assignment is the following chapters:
pitch black
and
thick as molasses, bunker fuel. And at last, the shipping industry begins cleaning up its dirty fuels. So these are filthy because they have they don't burn well.
It's terrible stuff.
I'd love to get them off that.
A small handful of these giant container ships burning bunker fuel generate way more pollution, way more greenhouse gases, and all kinds of other nasty pollution than the entire fleet of ground vehicles in the United States.
But I have to point out, cruise ships also use bunker fuel.
Yes.
Yeah. This is like the methane thing. It's like if they were able to cap all the uncapped burning methane wells out there, and get rid of bunker fuel. Like it's the problem with climate change contributing emissions is that they're actually significant ones that are not within the power of consumers or most businesses to affect.
In fact, we're sorting our recycling and we're driving around EVs. We got solar panels.
We have to do it.
If people would stop using bunker fuel
or cap old,
actually increase the albedo of their heads, we would be in a much better situation. I'm just saying.
One of the many downsides of fracking is, if you think about it, you're in fracking, they're injecting a bunch of stuff under high pressure into the ground to literally crack the Earth's crust to release the methane and the crude oil from the Earth's crust. Well, when you're doing that by literally cracking the crust of the Earth, a lot of that methane is actually seeping into the atmosphere.
Yeah, and that is a far worse.
It's about 20 times the greenhouse gas effect of carbon dioxide.
Yeah,
it's killing. Right, this is the thing. I'm working on an environmental story, and for a environmental publication, and there is heartening to know that there is a lot of quiet work going into that could have major changes. There's a satellite going up next year called methane. Sorry, I'm doing the English pronunciation for you. Well, sorry, methane sat, that's going to be doing some of the most advanced monitoring of methane emissions around the world in a way that is not impossible, but is very difficult and is at a lower frequency. So there's all these things happening. They're going to help provide accountability that then governments and businesses will have to take action on. But we're not helpless. It's just slow.
It's fascinating. A very low octane and diesel fuel. That's why you don't need spark plugs, because it self-ignites.
Yes.
It auto-ignites in a truck.
Yeah. Right. And diesels use much higher compression ratio. Right. When you compress because of the air, it heats up.
Yeah.
PV equals nRT. Forget what the equation's called, but when you increase the pressure, the temperature increases.
Quippy said that PV equals N divided by M times RT. Fascinating.
All
right.
Avogadro's equation.
I did not expect.
Is that Avogadro's number?
Yeah. Oh. Well, N is Avogadro's number. I think that's Avogadro's equation.
Oh. Fascinating. I remember that. And moles. Yeah, moles. There's moles. Yeah, there's moles.
Shake your head.
Man, I haven't talked about this stuff in
chemistry, baby.
I just learned a lot. Thank you, Sam.
My avocado number is 6. Says
that's the most you can eat one day.
Eric Duckman. Yes.
Can I get an affogato number?
After that, the compression stops working and I explode. Sorry.
We really got into chemistry on that one. That's fun. See, you never know what you're going to get.
It's the ideal gas law. That's what PV equals nRT is the ideal gas law. That's what it was.
Pressure is P, V is volume, T is temperature. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
What's N and M? We don't know. Nobody cares. We can just guess.
And is the amount of the whatever substance, whatever gas.
Quantity. quantity divided by M.
Yeah. I thought N&M was a rapper.